So I'm just going to record it there now. I think that is recording there now. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So look, I'm going to start off. Just give me a second. I'm going to just open up just a bit of a presentation, share my screen with you. And Stephen, you might just keep an eye out. And if anybody else comes in, what I'll do is I'll make you a co-host, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's great.
If you spot anybody else coming in, what we can do then is let me just make you a co-host. Make a co-host. Yeah, so you can let them in, Stephen, as we go on. And so I suppose, guys, I'm sure you probably all know Stephen anyway. Stephen's the Ulster development manager. Works very closely with myself and the team up here in Dublin and Tennis Ireland, and has done, I suppose, a lot of work, and is probably doing most of the engagement with you around COVID-related engagement with you in Ulster for the last number of months. And hopefully we'll be seeing the back of COVID pretty shortly, but there's still a little bit of work to do, I think. So look, I'm going to stick this up on the screen there now. Can you all see that? See my screen? Perfect. Yes. Great. Okay. Well, look, as I said, you're very welcome. Thanks a million for coming along today. I'm just going to maybe just talk to you a little bit about 2020 first, just a little bit of an overview first in terms of, like, it's been a tough year with many challenges, and I'm sure it's been felt by yourselves as well as the Ulster branch, as well as ourselves. And I suppose I'd like to thank your clubs, yourselves, and your members for your support throughout the year. And I suppose the way that we have tried to engage on your behalf, we've tried to engage with government and government agencies like Sport Northern Ireland and Sport Ireland, obviously down in the Republic here, but try to get our sport back playing as soon as possible. And but we've also engaged, as have, I suppose, other sports as well, with the various bodies around trying to look for some funding support, because obviously, you know, when we started back with the lockdown in late March, early April, for the 2 or 3 months, nobody really knew where we were going to go, and obviously that was having a major impact on our clubs, both from an income perspective and but also, I suppose, just the uncertainty of the whole thing. And you know, but we were delighted to be, I suppose, one of the first sports to get back to get back playing. And I suppose what we've tried to do is we've endeavoured to engage with you, I suppose, in relation to the development and dissemination of the various guidelines that are there. And obviously the guidance and protocols and restrictions are changing on a week-to-week basis. So there's been quite a lot of work done to try and keep up to date with those, and to try and make sure that those guidance notes have been disseminated to our clubs. And in fairness to the clubs, I think they've done a great job in terms of making sure that those guidelines have been adhered to in most instances. So. I suppose what we also tried to do as well was we tried to give some assistance to clubs running competitions. We developed guidance notes around how to run safe tournaments during COVID. We also produced safe camp guidelines as well for clubs. We also endeavoured to try and keep clubs up to date in relation to notifications with regard to funding, so any funding streams that became available. So down south, it was you know, around whether it's rates, rebates, whether it was the wage subsidy schemes. Up the north, it'd be obviously furlough, and then there was some rates refunds as well. And I suppose so we've tried to do our best to keep up to date with the various notifications that are there, and to try and pass that on to you as much as possible. And we've also, I suppose, tried to get on with the delivery of our range of programs and activities. Like I'll give you an example of our Tennis Ireland Tour, junior, senior, and the Open Tours. We organised over 17,000 matches this year. So in a very truncated season, there's been a lot of work done. And I suppose when I think back at this time last year, it was. I don't think anybody saw that we would be in the position that we've been this year. And I suppose what we'd like to do is to say that we're in this together, and hopefully, you know, as we emerge from this particular pandemic, that we will be the stronger for it, and our clubs will be. And you know, we've come across all of these different phrases over the last year. Our own dictionaries have had a number of new phrases in it, whether it's flatten the curve or lockdowns and stay-at-home orders and all this kind of stuff. So hopefully we will be passing through the other end of this pretty quickly. In 2021, we've got, I suppose, a number of exciting developments coming down our way. One of the big ones is what we call the World Tennis Number. And this is a project that we've been working on for about the last 18 months in conjunction with the ITF. And early in the new year in January, we will be the first country in the world to launch the World Tennis Number, and very quickly after that, we will have a number of other countries that will be joining us, like the LTA, the UK, the US Tennis Association, Tennis Australia, Singapore, China, and a number of these other countries. And I expect about 5 million players to be to have a rating by the end of 2021. We already have, I suppose, in the background, we've already applied a rating to 30,000 of our players here. So that will kick off in 2021, early 2021 in January. So in our newsletter next week, we'll be putting out some I suppose information around that, but that's going to be a really exciting program for us. Our equal advantage strategy, which is, I suppose, our diversity strategy, which is pretty much ready for launch now as well. It's been approved by our board, and we're just waiting for a bit of a window to give it the launch that I suppose that it deserves. And we've appointed a women in tennis development officer, Gráinne O'Neill, who is working on that particular program. And there's been a lot of engagement, I suppose, in terms of trying to encourage more women to get involved in leadership roles within our sport, as well as get more women involved in coaching and in officiating activities. We're pretty good in terms of from a playing perspective, but there are differences, I suppose, in terms of diversity, in terms of coaching, and in terms of the leadership of the sport. And that's something that we are taking very, very seriously and will be a key part of our work going forward. We also have entered into agreement with a company called ClubSpark, and we will be launching and rolling out the ClubSpark platform. So this is I suppose a club management platform, online platform that we'll be rolling out to clubs during 2021 and beyond. And we've about 20 clubs that we're just about to issue with pilot licenses for that, and we'll be engaging with clubs, in all 4 provinces over the next few months in relation to that. And it will allow clubs to, I suppose, to manage their membership, engage with them, to have their website, core booking systems, to manage tournaments, to manage coaching programs, coaching camps, etc. And it really will be a one-stop shop for clubs, and enable them to engage with their members and their community much more effectively. And that's something that we'll be rolling out in 2021. Obviously, we have a record number of tournaments and events planned for 2021 in terms of, and hopefully COVID situation will ease and allow us to run a full calendar of events and tournaments in 2021. And we'll also have, I suppose, their usual rollout of our programs, some which will be new and some which will be updated as well, parks, tennis, etc. And these programs will be running out. And obviously we want to try and continue to engage with our member clubs across the 4 provinces, north and south. So I suppose after that, I suppose, leads me into the Sports Sustainability Fund. I think we've got a couple of more people who've joined us as well. Just welcome them. I think Ashley has joined us, and let me just see who else has joined us there. If you give me a second. And
David and Evelyn.
Yeah, we've got David and Evelyn as well. So very good. You're very welcome, David and Evelyn, and I hope you get something out of tonight's presentation. So, the Sports Sustainability Fund, I suppose. Well, what is it? I'm sure some of you have probably looked through the documentation. I suppose it's an investment. It's an investment that's come from Sport Northern Ireland and the Department of Communities, a partnership between them. And I suppose it's us following at the behest of, I suppose, the sports sector. Whether it's from football, rugby, GAA, tennis, and all the other sports, who have been engaging with Sport Northern Ireland and the Department of Communities on a regular basis to try and look for assistance for our clubs. And I suppose this particular fund is an intervention to prevent the sports sector being unduly impacted by the pandemic. Obviously, across all the different sectors of the economy, there have been support mechanisms that have been put in place, and some clubs will have benefited from those already. For example, through the furlough scheme, if they've had employees. And this is just this investment is an intervention specifically for the sports sector. The size of the fund is £25 million, so it's not an inconsiderate sum. It's a fairly hefty sum of money, and I suppose what we've got to try and do is try and make sure that funding is drawn down if it is required. And the funding, I suppose the way it works is the funding will be provided to NGBs and clubs, so both ourselves, the branch, and clubs who are experiencing financial hardship can apply. So in other words, I mean, the way that the fund has been set up and the way the application process has been set up, if you're not experiencing hardship, and if you're, as they say, quids in for the year, well, then you shouldn't be applying, and the reality is you won't get funding from this scheme. But if you're able to demonstrate that you are suffering from financial hardship, you will be in a position to apply and hopefully to get some funding from the scheme. So, and it's not just a case of you just put in an application. There will be evidence required, financial evidence required, which will have to show the need that has been caused specifically by COVID-19. So, if you have been running your club, or if you've been running your club in a poor fashion, or if you have taken on a big capital project, for example, and have run out of money just for that, well, this isn't the fund for you. You have to demonstrate that there's a financial need that is specifically caused by COVID-19. So the process, and hopefully you might have seen the application form and further details via the Sport NI website, and basically that's the link to the website there. And if you haven't seen it, I'd suggest you do. I will send you out a copy of this presentation as well, so you'll be able to get the link. You'll be able to get the link afterwards. And but if you just type into Google Sport NI Sports Sustainability Fund, it'll give you the link through to the Sport Northern Ireland website as well. And I suppose the way it works is, rather than clubs applying to Sport Northern Ireland directly and then getting in thousands and thousands of applications, what they have done is they've engaged with ourselves and asked that the NGBs, I suppose, take ownership of the applications coming from their various sports. So what will happen is that the club will complete and submit the application form and the supporting documentation that's required to Tennis Ireland / Ulster branch. And I'll give you some contact details in which to do that very shortly. And that Tennis Ireland and the Ulster branch will be responsible for submitting the collated application. So if we get applications in from 20 clubs, we'll collate those 20 applications, and then we will put that together into a submission that is sent to Sport Northern Ireland. And then Sport Northern Ireland will assess the applications, and then if there is funding that is to be allocated, that will come through Tennis Ireland / Ulster branch, and then that will be then submitted back out to the clubs in that manner. So I suppose our role really is to play a supporting role for the clubs, both from the point of view of facilitating the application, but also if you have any queries or questions, we will hopefully be in a position to be able to answer them. If we can't answer those specific questions, we'll get on to Sport Northern Ireland and we'll come back to you with an answer as soon as we can. So, as I said earlier on, the applications must be reflective of evidenced need and that is specific to COVID-19. And the financial need assessment must take account of other income and funding sources available to the sport. So, I suppose in one respect, while most clubs have probably seen their income drop in 2020, it's not just a fund that is there to cover off the income drop. It also takes into account, because some clubs might have had expenditure savings this year. So, for example, if they might have had a drop in tournament income, but at the same time they would have had corresponding costs on the expenditure side. So basically, the application process must take that into account. And obviously, you might well have dropped in income, but you would also have received income from, potentially, if you had, for example, if you had employees, you might have benefited from particular employment schemes, for example, the furlough scheme, which would have made a contribution towards employee costs as well. So it's important that you're aware of that it's not just an application specifically for the drop in income that you have had, but it is taking, I suppose, the whole expenditure side as well into account. And the awards will be calculated, I suppose, via the difference between the current period surplus. In other words, if there's a deficit or surplus between, from April 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2020. So particularly, this particular COVID year. And what they will compare that to, I suppose, is the average surplus or deficit from 2019, 2018 and the 2017 accounts from the club. And this investment, as I said, will be based on evidenced financial detriment resulting from COVID-19. So if you are showing that you've made a similar surplus to 2019, 18 or 17, well, the reality is that the way the Sport Northern Ireland will look at this is they'll say that, look, you haven't, it hasn't significantly hasn't been a significant detrimental effect from COVID-19, and the likelihood is that you won't be getting any funding in that regard. So these are the kind of things that you will need to think of, I suppose, prior and during your application process. And I suppose from a Sport Northern Ireland point of view, they will be undertaking some financial due diligence checks, on a random basis. So they will be looking at that as well. So as I mentioned earlier on, that the applications must be submitted to the NGB, and in this regard, Stephen, who's on the line there, Stephen Garvin, who's our development manager. So Stephen is going to take the applications in, and he's going to manage them on our behalf, and I'll work, and our financial controller Adrian Kelly will also work with Stephen to make sure that application, all those applications are collated and submitted in the correct format to Sport Northern Ireland. So the applications must be submitted to Stephen at that email address, developmentmanager@ulstertennis.co.uk. Now, the closing date for receipt of applications into Stephen and into Ulster branch is Wednesday, 6th of January 2021. So that's 5 p.m. on Wednesday, 6th of January. So there's not a lot of time to do that. We have to submit that into Sport Northern Ireland on the 11th of January, so which is a Monday. So really we've just got a couple of days for which to review and collate all of the applications and put them into the format that Sport Northern Ireland are looking for. So unfortunately, they won't allow any late entries to be submitted. And I think, in that regard, we will have to do the same, because there is a little bit of work that needs to be done once those applications are submitted into us. So that's the closing date, as I said, is the 6th of January. I know it doesn't give an awful lot of time. We have asked Sport Northern Ireland to look at extending the 11th of January deadline, which they're considering at the moment. I think there's a lot of angst, I suppose, from the different governing bodies, and they're considering that at the moment. And if that changed, so if they move that out a week or two, well, we'll do the same in terms of that. But at the moment, and until you hear further from us, the closing date for applications into us is the 6th of January. So now I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about the application form. And as I said, the application form is available on the Sport Northern Ireland website as well. And as I said, I have a link there for you as well. And I suppose when you download it, this is in essence what you'll see. Hopefully you'll be able to see that. Now I will enlarge it a little bit in a couple of minutes, but you'll see that there's 7 parts to the to what is in essence a spreadsheet. So what I would advise you to do is to try and get, if you have certainly you'll need the treasurer of the club will need to be involved. And I think, if your treasurer, I suppose, as is the case in some clubs, if they don't have a little bit of experience around using Excel, or if they don't have maybe a little bit of finance or accounting experience, it'd be important to maybe get somebody who can assist with that. Because there is a fair bit of information that's required, and there will have to be a little bit of a look back to previous accounts as well. So as you can see there, in terms of like the spreadsheet, I'll just run through a few bits and pieces. It's been created in order to compare the 9-month period from 1st of April 2020 to 31st of December. So you can see that part 1 there, which is, I think you can see my cursor there, so you can see part 1 there. So basically, they're looking for information for the 9 months from 1st of April 2020 to 31st of December 2020. So they're looking at obviously income, revenue or turnover, whether that's match day income, which is probably not really relevant for tennis clubs. That would include things like ticket sales, program sales. That'd probably be more linked to football or rugby. But the kind of things that would be relevant to tennis would be obviously membership, competitions, events, income related to that, hospitality. So that if you have a bar or restaurant in your club, sponsorship. There's COVID-related grant income there, normal revenue grants, other income generating activities. And if you see these little red tabs that are here, and you can see it over here on this one here, if you hover over that little red tab, up will come a comment which will give you an indication of what type of revenue should be included in this. And then it's the same down below in terms of the expenditure side as well: wages and salaries, match day costs, competitions and events costs, hospitality costs, and all other operating costs, and they would fit in there. And I'll run through these in a little bit more detail throughout the presentation. So as you can see, as I said, they only want you to consider operating or trading income and expenditure and I suppose the figures required for entry should come from the organization's income and expenditure account or their profit and loss account. And as I mentioned, each cell has a comment attached to it, and that to give you a clarification of what's required. Now, the spreadsheet has been set up to automatically calculate figures. So you'll find that when you input some figures that you'll be able to do that easily. And then there's other cells where you won't be able to input a figure, but there's already a formula that is in place there that will automatically update and calculate the figures that you put in. So those cells will not allow you to enter figures into them. They'll be automatically updated. And then at the very top of the spreadsheet, which you'll see up there, you put in your club name and the club's postcode in there as well. That helps us to identify the club, and then obviously where they're located as well. So if I look at the first part, as I mentioned earlier on, so look, it pretty much relates to, as I said, to the 9 months from 1st of April to 2020. And it's specifically, in terms of this year's figures. And the reason they're looking at the 9 months is, I suppose, that's really how COVID, or when COVID has really affected clubs. So pretty much from the 1st of April, we were locked down. And then obviously it has had numerous impacts, I suppose, right up to the end of this year. And I suppose the figures that come into this should really be taken from the organisation's approved management accounts for the period. So I think a lot of clubs would have management accounts that they'd be able to pull these particular figures from. So I think that one is fairly straightforward enough in terms of what is required there. The second part then, I suppose, is a little bit more information that's required, and basically what they're looking at is, and I mentioned earlier on that they're also looking to compare, I suppose, what the surplus or deficit for this year has been, compare that then to 2019, 2018, and 2017. And what they'll do is they'll basically take a 9-month average, across those 3 years, and that will be calculated automatically by the spreadsheet. So as you can see there, in terms of 2017, again, straightforward enough in terms of match day income, again, which is not necessarily relevant to tennis clubs, but it might be. And then you've got memberships, competitions, events. So the same headings from an income perspective, and the same headings then from an expenditure perspective. And then what is the trading or operating surplus or deficit for that particular period? You do the same for 2018, you do the same for 2019 as well. And as I said, it'll automatically calculate for you what the 9-month average is, and that will be used as a benchmark to compare to 2020. So if I move on, then we move into part 3 of the spreadsheet, and basically what this does, this will calculate the need due to COVID-19. So which is really the difference between the current period's surplus or deficit, i.e. that is from April 2020 to 31st of December 2020, and the average surplus or deficit from the previous years. And any additional funding confirmed but not yet received should be entered in the other confirmed assistance cell. So for example, some clubs might have a letter of offer for maybe other grant income or other grant support to cover COVID-related losses, but it hasn't been received yet. So that needs to be declared in this particular section of the spreadsheet. So again, it will automatically identify what the basic difference identified is, and then you just basically put in then what your other confirmed assistance is in here. So if, as I said to you, if you're expecting a payment in from a grant or from some other source of income that is specifically COVID related, that will you enter that in there, and then it will automatically calculate then what the request for assistance is. Okay, and that will be in essence what will go into Sport Northern Ireland and what will be the basis for the application. Now, obviously, what Sport Northern Ireland have said to us is, so if they get 25 million euros, there's 25 million euros to spend, and if they've got 25 million euros worth of applications, well, they'll hand out the 25 million. There is no point scoring, or there's no scoring system that's there. However, if they get 50 million euros worth of applications, of valid applications, and there's only 25 million in the pot, the reality is that they will only give out 50% of the 50% of what of the request for assistance. So if you're a club that's applied for maybe 50,000 or whatever, you will get 25,000. So that's really the way it's worked. So there is no scoring system or anything like that. If you can demonstrate that there's a need that's there, then you just that will be outlined by you in your submission. And as I said, if 25 million euros of requests come in or less, then you'll get 100% of what you're looking for. So that's fairly straightforward from that point of view. So then part 4, and this is an optional one, I suppose. Look, this is something that you don't have to fill in, but again, if you have the ability to do so, Sport Northern Ireland would encourage you to do so. So that basically is sort of projections from the 3 months from 1st of January 2021 to 31st of March 2021. And some clubs might, like there may well be, and this is particularly if there's some funding that might be left over. So for example, as you see today, now we'd only 8 clubs that have expressed an interest in applying. So if that is a similar type of a level of funding, or I say interest or level of need from across the sport, well, it's unlikely that the 25 million will be used up. So they may well look at the 3 months from January 2021 to the end of March 2021, and they may well allocate some funding to that. So if you have 3 months projections for those 3 months, you should include them as well, and they should be taken from the organisation's approved management account projections for this particular period. And as I said, this section is optional as some organisations may not be in a position to evidence this. But as I said,
do you want
to? Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, can you repeat that?
Asking any questions?
Sorry, no, I just lost you there now.
Sorry, do you wish us to wait until the end before asking any questions?
Yeah, look, because we've a small number in, if you feel that you want to, if you want to ask a question, look, fire ahead. Feel free to interrupt me. There's no problem there.
Right. Well, let me say a couple of things. I'm the treasurer of our club, so I'm into spreadsheets. There was a mistake in part 5 that I pointed out to Sport NI, and they've now corrected it.
Okay.
But part 4 feeds directly into part 5 and adds pro rata from the bottom line of part 4 into part 5. So I would suggest you need to fill in part 5 if you're going to have a deficit, because it will make quite a difference in what the number that you're requesting.
Thanks, David. I think we'll certainly take that on board. I wasn't aware now there was an issue. I didn't see. We hadn't had a notification. When were you in touch with Sport Northern Ireland about that? Just as a matter of interest?
A week ago. It was a comment which is misleading. It said it took information from part 1 and part. Oh, let me look at my spreadsheet.
Okay. Well, what we can do.
I have the spreadsheet open here, but I'm not sure if it's the good one or the new one.
Part 1 and part 2, and actually it was a different part it took it from. So they've now corrected it. The current spreadsheet online is correct.
Okay, well then that's okay. So look, we've got that one. That's the one that we're using. That's the one that we're using at the moment. So so that should be okay. That should be okay. But thanks for pointing that out, David.
Yeah, they were thankful. So I wrote a polite note, and they took it in the context it was meant.
Very good, very good, very good. Thanks for that. So so as I said, in terms of part 4 is optional, but look, if you can complete it, I think it'd be worthwhile doing so. And this is part 5 that David mentioned as well, in terms of, again, it is optional, and this basically calculates the need due to COVID-19. In other words, the difference between the projected period surplus and deficit from 1st of January 2021 to 31st March 2021, and then the average surplus stroke deficit for the previous year. So it'll highlight, I suppose, the level of need due for the first 3 months of the year. And again,
so
it is. Sorry, go ahead, David.
The first piece in part 5.
Yes.
I would like to know the algorithm that works that out, because it seems unusual.
Yeah.
It's simply dividing the prorated for the 3 years by 3, which I don't know. I don't know what the basis is of that. That would be good to understand.
Yeah, I tell you, I wouldn't have that information, David. I think we'll have to get that from Sport Northern Ireland for you. So look, what I might get you to do, David, maybe if you dropped an email to myself or Stephen afterwards, and what we could do is we could get, I could get on to Ian Weir in the morning and get an answer back, and then I could share it with everybody if that was okay with you.
Yeah, it's fine.
Great. Well, look, I'll give you my email address before we go. Well, I'll drop you an email. I'll drop you an email afterwards, because I've got everybody's email address that registered. So you'll have that, and I'll send the presentation along. And as I said, if there's queries there, come back to me, and I'll forward them on to Ian Weir in Sport Northern Ireland. And Ian is pretty good at coming back fairly quickly. So so that's that. And as I said, obviously, if there's a figure there that that is negative and no need can be demonstrated, well, then no application should really be submitted for that particular period in terms of 2021. Part 6 then, I suppose, really, and this is as part of the application process. Yes, you've got to complete the spreadsheet, but you'll also have to submit some documentary evidence into Stephen Garvin, which is to evidence the figures entered, and that should be forwarded to your application. And basically, what in the spreadsheet, you'll just have to click, on this particular section here. You see where my cursor is there. You'll have yes. It'll be a drop down box. Be yes or no. Sorry, excuse me. I've gone past there. It'll be yes or no. Yes or no there. And then if you're doing the optional one, which is part 4, you can either click yes or not applicable. So if you don't fill it in, obviously not applicable is what you would click there. So it's just really a ready reckoner to make sure that you have submitted those particular accounts. So you'll need the 2017 accounts, you'll need your 2018 accounts and your 2019 accounts, and then a document which is your 9-month accounts for the 31st of December 2020, which I think your treasurer should be able to complete. Okay, I think that's that and that one. Then in part 7 then of the spreadsheet, which is just approvals, and it's just basically I suppose it's a certification process that you certify, and you've read and understood the guidelines and criteria applicable to the application for funding and agree to comply to it in full, and that you certify on behalf of the applicant that all information provided is truthful and accurate, having taken all reasonable steps to ensure this. And then the third one then is to certify that you've made full and complete disclosure of all relevant facts relating to the application or its subject matter, whether supportive of the application or otherwise. So, and that you undertake to inform Sport Northern Ireland fully and immediately in writing of any material amendments or changes in the circumstances of the applicant or any part of the subject matter of the application which may in any way affect the application. Okay, and then there's obviously a declaration there that you undertake that from the date of the award, no one will be denied access to the project or to the club in respect of which an award has been paid, whether that's in full or part, on the grounds of religious belief, political opinion, racial group, age, marital status, sexual orientation, gender, disability, and persons with dependents without just reasonable and proper cause. And you'll need an authorised office bearer to print their name in there, and the second one as well with the date. And that's basically the application form that's there. From an assessment point of view, as I said, Sport Northern Ireland will review. Obviously they're collated by us, and we don't play a part in the assessment process. We will forward the information to Sport Northern Ireland. We'll hold on to the accounts that you submit in terms of the 2017, 18, 19 accounts that are there. And if Sport Northern Ireland deem it necessary, they will come back to us and look for further information initially. And they may well come back to the clubs, but I don't think that they will. I think it'll just be between ourselves and Sport Northern Ireland at that stage. And they will consider the financial need identified in the eligible applications that they've received and in line with the funding that's available. So as I mentioned earlier on, if there's 25 million or less value of applications, then the level of need that's outlined, more than likely clubs will get 100% of it. However, if there's 50 million euros worth of applications, the reality is that you probably only get half of what you're looking for. So they will allocate the funding based on in line with the amount that's available for distribution. So as I said, applications will not be scored or prioritised by sport or organisation. So I think I mentioned that to you earlier on. I think it was David in terms of whether you should apply from the bowling side or the tennis side. So there is no scoring process. There isn't really a lobbying process in this regard. So if you apply through bowling, you'll be assessed the same as if you applied through tennis. And then I suppose the analysis of income and expenditure question will enable Sport Northern Ireland to consider the effects of COVID-19 on the applicant. And I suppose this is the mechanism that they have put together to allow themselves to assess that. And I think Sport Northern Ireland will endeavour to provide a proportion of the need identified to as many eligible organisations as possible. So they do want to try and assist. And I think the whole, as I mentioned at the start, this is an intervention to support the sports sector, and I think Sport Northern Ireland will do that and will endeavour to provide as much need as possible to organisations. So I suppose we're coming to the end now, I suppose, in one respect. So we've got a number of timelines that are there. So obviously, they got the Sport Northern Ireland were confirmed, I suppose, the funding package on the 23rd of November. They opened the programme at very short notice to ourselves on the 4th of December. So basically they launched the programme and then told us afterwards. And then those applications are live throughout December. We did have a workshop with Sport Northern Ireland last Wednesday or Thursday. And I suppose we just managed to get the information collated and put it into tonight's presentation. And as I mentioned, the closing day for clubs to submit their applications to the Ulster branch and Tennis Ireland through Stephen is the 6th of January. The closing date is for us then to submit the collated applications to Sport Northern Ireland is the 11th of January, which is a Monday. So I think the closing day is on a Wednesday. So really we sort of Thursday and Friday, and maybe hopefully we'll have a little bit of time over the weekend as well to collate everything and submit it then for Monday afternoon at 3 o'clock. And as I said, the vouching and verification process that will be underway by Sport Northern Ireland will be done through January and February. And hopefully by the end of February, that the payments will be issued to the NGBs, who will then reissue them back out to the clubs. And then additional sample vouching, monitoring and evaluation will take place during March and July. So, Sport Northern Ireland may well look for further information. They may well, carry out a number of audits on a number of clubs, particularly those who have applied for large amounts of money, just to make sure that that the funding or I suppose the information that they submitted as part of their application was correct. And I suppose that's just their due diligence that they have to do as part of as part of their mandate to make sure that taxpayers' money is being used appropriately. So that's pretty much it. There's a fair bit there. I think there's I think that the spreadsheet though is fairly straightforward, but as I said, you will need to have somebody who is competent, I suppose, in terms of from a finance point of view and from has an understanding of the figures as they relate to the club, not just for this year, but for right back to 2017, and that they need to be competent in terms of how to utilize a spreadsheet as well. And so we do know that it is a tight time frame. As I said, Sport Northern Ireland have been asked to extend the 11th of January date, and as I said, if that does change, well, we will be in touch with the clubs as well to do that, because we obviously know it's Christmas period is I suppose a time for people just to relax a little bit, and I think it's important that we try and give as much time as we can to clubs to try and put their applications together. So that's it from my point of view, guys. If you've any questions, look, I'm happy to take those questions. I know we had a couple of people on late. We have recorded the tonight's presentation. So what I will do is I will email it out to you tomorrow, if that's okay, and so you'll be able to catch up if you missed a section of it. And but if anybody has any questions, look, feel free to ask them now.
Stephen, Ed Smith here, Downshire Tennis Club, and I'm the treasurer of the club. And first of all, thank you for the presentation. And can I say, I mean, anybody that's available to any sport or tennis is everyone's very grateful for it. My main sort of when I see the timeline, Richard, is it seems almost that this grant is designed for two types of club. You have a club maybe which is a larger club that has rolling membership and has maybe been running entertainment during the year and programs, and they can easily identify that there's a loss. the other type of club, the smaller club, like Downshire, we entirely depend on income from membership. And our biggest concern is our membership runs from the 1st of January to the 31st of December. So all our members have paid last year and we have the income stream. Our biggest issue is that we're very concerned about in 2021 that we will lose members, we will lose lots of income, and the club expenditure will go down a little, but that we will suddenly find ourselves in March that we'll be in a deficit.
Yeah.
But this is arriving too late. This seems to be into clubs that can now prove. Now, most clubs, if you take some of the bigger clubs that don't have rolling member or that have rolling membership, etc., the other clubs won't. The other clubs will probably be like Downshire in that they have a set membership year and people will have paid. And this doesn't seem to allow for that. And that would be my concern. This doesn't seem to allow for the likes of our club.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're right. I think you're right, Ed. And I suppose, like from our point of view, I suppose it's really like Sport Northern Ireland's application process, and we've outlined it. And I think that's why they sort of looked at the first 3 months of 2021 as well, in terms of the January to end of March in 2021, which people can and have the option of putting in what they would feel or estimate that their losses would be. They are only projections, and I think that's something that it's something that clubs will have to make probably a provision for, and I think that's probably the way to manage that one, Ed. I suppose I don't have a solution for that at this moment in time. I think if the COVID issue continues on, as I said, for well into 2021, I think certainly I think there will be a call for some additional assistance from the government to assist this particular.
If that 25 million wasn't spent, I would have liked to have seen. I mean, I just think and I know it's difficult, but probably have been discussed with the clubs. I think maybe a date of April or something next year would have been much more beneficial. I mean, because lots of financial years run from, and people that have set members that 9 months. It's almost going to be impossible to prove the figures. I mean, the financial year would have been it seems to me that it'd be more sensible having the closing date in March. But I say there's nothing.
The difficulty for us, I would say most clubs actually the first date of membership is 1st of April.
Yeah,
I think Downshire is actually slightly unique as 1st of January.
Sorry, Richard, if I could comment, I have worked through the spreadsheets, and the membership of Limavady goes from the 1st of January to the 31st of December. So I don't have any problem whatsoever with the spreadsheets and the ability to fill them in and the ability to identify the need. However, my problem is one of a macro level. And I think you hit on it, that the first line item in the spreadsheet is match day income. So my fear is a macro one where more larger participative sports such as football and Gaelic will have such massive claims for loss of income, for match day income, that anything we will get will be crumbs from the table. And we could be doing a lot of work for next to nothing because they will have massive claims. I mean, the loss of revenue to GAA or to the Irish Football Association will be massive compared to us. And therefore, what we end up with could be maybe not even worth the bother filling in the spreadsheet.
Yeah, and I think that's something that Sport Northern Ireland are aware of, and I think if you look back on what the principles of it as well are to, that they want to look at across the sports, and so that it's not just the big three sports that are and they're, look, in fairness, I think they're the ones that they've been hit probably more than, because they're so reliant on that gate receipt income.
And absolutely, very big organisations, but the problem is the way it's configured. Their numbers, ours will be so small that the part of the pot we will get, this is my fear, will be minuscule.
And I think, as I said, that's something that they are acutely aware of. And when I spoke to Ian and on the workshop that we were on last Wednesday, that was one of the things that was raised, and he said, look, we will be looking to try and spread it across the sporting sectors. So it's not just for, as I said, the big three sports. They want to try and spread it out across. Sorry, and Ed, I suppose just come back to your question as well. I suppose in terms of your in terms of your membership, I suppose, in terms of 2020, have you seen, like, and I know you won't know, if, like, do people pay up front, or is it?
Yeah, you see, we
Direct
and again, to get back to Stephen's point, even though you run a membership year from, and you know, we will be changing ours, but even though you run it from the sort of 1st of April to the 31st of March, I mean, most people pay by direct debit and most people pay in advance. So yeah, we have a rule that, and again, it's really because of Tennis Ireland and the Belfast District League, because when you enter teams, you have to be a member of a club. So, you know, we have a rule that and that's really the reason we switched to January. The membership fees go out in December to be payable by the end of February. Otherwise, you're not a member of the club, because that allowed us to register for people to play in teams, etc., etc. So everybody's paid. So and I see the gentleman in Mavati. So we have our income stream for 2020.
Yeah.
But with people being furloughed and people moving, people losing jobs, and all sorts of other sort of financial strains on people, we're just concerned that we're sending our membership thing out now. We've actually put a small reduction because people you know, missed sort of 3 months of tennis, so trying to encourage them, but we won't really know. We won't really know until the end of February 21 whether you know, we have 500 members, but if we go down to 300, we'll suddenly be in a loss-making situation. And that leads on to one of my other questions, not fair for you guys tonight, but one of our biggest, the largest expenditure we have is affiliation fees. Now, I don't know whether Tennis Ireland or Ulster branch are thinking of maybe making a token reduction or something in clubs' affiliation fees, which would be an enormous help to the smaller clubs.
Yes.
But you know, it is that fear of next year. It might not happen, but I guess suddenly find next June coming back to the committee saying, look, guys, we're suddenly going to lose money this year because we've lost, you know, if we lose over 100 members, it puts us in that sort of that situation where, you know, it's touch and go. We would have to then start sort of doing cost cutting exercises however we could, and most of our costs are, you know, electric. They're all based. There's nothing, you know, insurance, affiliation fees. There's nothing really much that we have to play with.
Yeah, they're fixed costs. I understand that. Yeah, look, to be honest with you, Ed, and I'm sorry to be bearer of bad news, but there's no plan at the moment. Anyway, I'm not saying that it won't happen, but there's no plan at the moment to look at a reduction on the capitation fees or affiliation fees at this moment in time. Like, I think, look, we would have canvassed, I suppose, a lot of the. You know, a lot of clubs just to see where, you know, just to see how they've been impacted in that, and I suppose the level of impact, certainly in terms of the year just gone, probably hasn't been as great, and I mean, and that's evidence again, like in terms of, you know, we've only 8 clubs that have expressed an interest in applying out of the 30 odd that are up in Ulster. So I think from that point of view, and it's the same down south as well. Like we've seen. I suppose being one of the first sports back, we saw a big jump. Big golf was the same. We saw a big jump in membership as well. Now, whether that will stay on until next year, that's another question. And but I think it is something that we have to look at. And I think certainly if the COVID situation continues and there still is that impact on the sector, you know, like no different to, you know, the restaurant sector or any other sectors, you know, I think that there will be additional supports provided, you know.
Richard, if I could comment again.
Yes, Dave.
Spreadsheet and what it means or what the implications are. Most of our clubs in terms of membership would not have suffered from COVID. We've actually all benefited. So if you look, if your accounts, the part of the accounts that's affected by COVID is income from something like the bar, from events and other things. Membership's actually gone up in most clubs. That isn't going to be the item that's going to be the need. It's going to be the loss for the things that COVID affected.
Yes, yeah.
Well,
and I think on the other side, while the income has been affected, so is the expenditure. The expenditure will have been affected as well, because you don't have the costs associated with, you know, whether it's around your bar or, you know, the products you're selling, or whether it's around your tournaments. So I think from that point of view, that's really what the application process is trying to figure out. So
All I was going to comment there was having spoken to the vast majority of the clubs, the ones that haven't really expressed that they've grown are clubs actually that have indoor courts. They seem to be the ones that have been most impacted because with the various COVID restrictions, often their indoor courts have been what has been closed. I guess Downshire on was. I know Lisburn Rackets and David Lloyd were two of the clubs. Certainly, you said to me they dropped membership, but all outdoor clubs have said they've increased. Do Downshire know? And if you don't mind saying, don't worry if you do.
Yeah, no, our membership's probably slightly higher because we've got a mixture of outdoor and indoor, and we're trying to make best use of the indoor facility for singles or house singles or doubles or for coaching. So
and I guess the challenge that all clubs really have, and I'm trying to hammer it home, but I'm not totally sure they're all getting it, is the retention of these new people. That's going to
that's as I say, Stephen. It's not. We have a job because I said our members pay up front, and we don't. So I agree. I mean, the membership has increased, but it's really just, as I said, we're keeping our fingers crossed that that the COVID suddenly won't have a big drop of members come January, February, and that would have been useful then. If this fund had been available, if we suddenly find that we were 10 or 20,000 pounds down in our sort of our balance sheets come next July, it would have been useful. But this year we don't have a problem. This year we'll have, we usually operate at about a 15 to 20k profit, and that we'll probably happen this year as well because everybody's paid. And I'll look after all the bills, and nothing has really changed. I say concern next year, and it's just that, as I said, that it's maybe just too early to tell for us.
Yeah.
Is there any other questions, John? Do you have a question?
The one thing I think I agree that we'll probably get little or nothing out of this grant. I mean, it's tennis. I think the big sports, GAA, soccer, and rugby their claims will be massive because they've lost supporters. I think what's left over is going to be fairly minor for anybody else, I think.
Yeah. Well, look, I think the key thing here is if as I said, if you can demonstrate the need, you put it, make sure it's there. Because if you don't put the application in, you certainly won't get anything. And I think that's certainly been. I know, like one of the I suppose annual grant schemes that operates down in the Republic is the Sports Capital Program. And when I started it nearly 4 years ago. The number of tennis clubs that were applying for that sports capital grant was really low, and because they just didn't feel that they would have a fair crack at it. And but they had the same chance as everybody else. And they got €6 million in the last 2 rounds of it. And clubs that would never have applied. The program's been running a good 20 years and never applied. And they ended up getting money out of it and have been able to develop the facility. So look, I would always encourage, certainly if you're able to demonstrate that you have had a loss on account of COVID, or some financial assistance is required because of COVID, that I would certainly put it in, and we'll make sure that it's put forward.
I would issue a challenge to Stephen and yourself
that
to work with Sport NI to make sure the minority sports get a slightly larger proportion than just based on the magnitude of the claim, because otherwise the large sports will swamp us. So that's my challenge to you, is to try and influence that the minority sports get something in recognition that they have needs, not just in proportion to the loss.
Yeah, well, we'll do our best. We'll do our best on that, David, as we always do our best on it. We can't say we'll be able to deliver on everything that we want, but it certainly won't be from a lack of trying.
Richard.
Trevor, how are you?
I do apologise. I thought the meeting started at 7:30, so I do apologise.
No problem.
Can I ask a quick question, which
Sure.
I asked to Stephen yesterday? Lisburn Rackets Club have 3 sports. Okay, it's an umbrella for Hilton Tennis Club, Alpha Badminton Club, and Lisburn Racket Squash Club. I'm led to believe that only we have to apply through the 3 governing bodies. Okay, it's how do we go about breaking down the cost? Because Lisburn Rackets Club carry all the wages, carry all the insurances, carry all the affiliations, and it's pretty good. Actually, Badminton Ireland this year has waived their affiliation fees right through until September of next year, which will give us about £7,000, which is a lot of money. But I mean, it's how we as a club I wasn't sure whether we should be applying through Ulster Badminton, Ulster Tennis, or indeed Ulster Squash.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things there in terms of if you are able to split out the accounts, that you would apply, you could apply to the, so if you're able to split out the badminton accounts, you can split out doing a pro rata. But if you're not in a position to do that, what I would suggest is that you look at, well, which is the biggest portion, which is the biggest section of our club. So if tennis was the biggest section by 75% of your members were tennis playing members, well then put it in through us. I think that'd be the way. That'd be the way I would do it.
That's okay. That's fine.
Because I know that'll be very difficult for people to break out. Like if you're just a standalone club, it'll be straightforward enough. But it's difficult. It's difficult if you're breaking it out.
Well, each club will have a wee set of accounts. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But the Squash Club being the smallest could have maybe but sort of £1,000, £1,500 a year coming in and going out. Yeah. But there's nothing in there to say about their wages or their electricity or their affiliation fees or their insurances or anything like that.
Yeah, I understand.
We will probably have to just sort of split that between the three.
Yeah.
Sort of okay, that's fine. That's okay.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Evelyn, how are you?
How are you, Richard? Just to say to you that I don't think it'll really benefit our tennis club. I'm ringing from Enniskillen. We've increased our membership by 25%. Yeah. But where we're losing out is fundraising. We'd have about big 3 events per year, and we'd lose out in the sponsorship maybe between 2,000 and 3,000 a year. And even then we have to fight hard because being a minority sport, a lot of the fundraising in the local area goes to the GAA, the rugby. So we fight hard to get these events, and so that's where we found that we've dropped out, and we've benefited actually through COVID as regards membership. We're still gaining members, we're still gaining members.
Yeah, but do you think on the whole financially there you'll have lost out? Because if you have, you can apply for this. It's reasonably simple.
So you think that we could, the surplus is the membership and the deficit is the fundraising?
Yeah, but if net that is a deficit, you can apply. Because I know some clubs have said they've increased the number of members, but because they reduced the fees so much, they didn't they lost money this year.
So some clubs might have given a say, I know a number of clubs down in the Republic where they're closed for 3 months, they might have taken 25% off their membership fee for the year. So even though they got more people in, they would have, the income that they would have gotten in a normal year would have been more. So, and then obviously, if they have hospitality, sort of if they have a bar and they have restaurant or food facilities or whatever else like that, they would have lost income there. So it really is, I suppose, an exercise that each club will have to look at in terms of, is it worth applying for? And I suppose if you have up-to-date accounts and you keep fairly regular accounts, you'll have a clear idea, I think, in terms of whether you're actually better off or worse off, I think. And obviously you have to take into account things like, obviously some clubs will have had staff furloughed as well, but they've still been paid, and so it really is a balancing act, I suppose, that each club will have to decide for themselves, and as to whether it is worthwhile, I suppose, first and foremost, applying, and is it something there? And look, you might have to get through half the application first before you really figure out, well, actually, geez, we're actually better off than we would have been in previous years, because of the increase in membership that we got, and because we haven't had the same level of expenditure for a number of the events that we are doing, etc. So it really is a bit of an exercise that you'll have to take on yourselves. Like each club is different. Each club has its own issues and circumstances. And look, it's very difficult to try and plan for, particularly in a funding scheme like this, to plan for every eventuality, because you do have, you have big clubs, small clubs. As I said, as we spoke earlier on, GA, rugby and soccer have probably been hit more on a much larger scale, simply because they're so dependent on things like gate receipts, and that's not really a source of income from ourselves. But on the other side, they might not they mightn't have the same type of membership income that we would have. So look, it really depends on your own particular circumstances.
I mean,
Richard,
the way the spreadsheet works is a comparison between the average for the previous 3 years and this year.
Yeah.
So whatever the accounts say is what the need is.
Exactly.
If you're lucky enough to have run a good ship for the previous 3 years and made a lot of money, then you can identify a bigger need.
Yeah, that's it.
Can I just ask a quick question, Richard, to go back, sorry, not on this, but on the earlier slide you mentioned the Club Spark scheme.
Yes.
Is that being, because I think that's a really good idea, and I know the LTA runs something similar, and I presume the idea is that all the clubs would be on the same system, and they all would be and club booking. And I mean, is that going to be available to all the clubs in Ireland? And is it free? Is it going to cost, or what way is that intended to work?
Yeah. So what we're looking at doing. So we got some funding from Sport Ireland down here. So it was 50,000 euros there of funding, of which about 35,000 of which is going to be allocated to Club Spark. And so there's some development costs that we've got to do, and then what we will be doing in terms of for the first year, that it'll be free of charge, and then after that we're looking at probably around 200. I think it's about 250 euros is what we're looking at. But if we get funding, like there is the possibility that we will get more funding next year as well, and so it might mean that we'll be able to we might be able to fund maybe a second or a third year free of charge for clubs as well. So we're just working our way through that at the moment. But we did an exercise. We looked at a lot of the other sports or club management systems that were out there, and the fee level that we were looking at and is as I said, is around 250 euros a year, so it'd be a little less in terms of sterling. And but when we did the comparison in terms of what other clubs are paying for, even if it was just for a standalone court booking system, it would be equivalent to that. So we're not out here, and at the end of the day, it's purely voluntary for clubs to take it on if they want to go with a different system, or if they don't want to have a system at all. That's purely up to them. In an ideal scenario, we'd love to have all of the clubs on it, because it just means then that there's obviously additional savings that we can make in terms of buying in bulk, etc. But that's what we'd be looking at in terms of the first year. It'd be free, and then 250 euros or equivalent in sterling for.
No, it's a really good. I've worked with a lot of clubs that have, and the standardization of it has huge benefits for everybody.
Yeah.
And when it comes to things like affiliation fees and just court booking and things, to be able to move from one club to another, it's long overdue, and it would be and that's what I was asking. It will be available to clubs in the north.
It will indeed. It will indeed.
It
will indeed.
It's not set up yet, but there will be an information evening. Paul O'Sullivan's are presenting as a presentation of it, doesn't he, Richard?
Yeah. Paul O'Sullivan and James Cooney are the two guys from our side that are looking after that. So they were at the Munster branch a couple of nights back, and I think it was Monday night. Yeah, they were at the Munster branch presenting, and they've been in the Leinster branch the week before. So they'll be in touch with the clubs in Ulster very shortly as well around that, and basically they'll give you an idea. We'll be looking for a number of pilot clubs in all 4 branches, small number, because obviously we want to make sure, because it's not just like our clubs, while 90% of it is probably the same as what they are in the UK or in Australia or in the US, where this particular platform is being rolled out by the federations, that there will be some small amount of testing that we'll need to do. We'll be looking for feedback from the clubs in relation to, I suppose, the usability of the system and the user friendliness of the system, and we may have to make a couple of changes to it. So that's really why we're going to roll out on a pilot basis first for the first few months of the year, and then probably in the second half of the year that we will be looking for, like at the end of this year, we'll be hoping that something in the region of 50 clubs will be using it. So which is like we've 180 clubs in the country, so it's a fair number of clubs that we'll be looking to try and sign up to it in year one. And as I said, not every club will do it, because they might already have their own particular system in place already, Club Manager 365 or whatever they're called, and there's a few other systems out there. But we think that just with the price position in terms of the utility of it, in terms of as we've looked at the other systems as well, and we feel that the Club Spark one is, as I said, it's very specific to tennis, and we think will add a lot of value. And we will be engaging with Club Spark to make some, improvements to it. And we've already started that process already, particularly around things like the core booking system and around being able to, run your club ladder matches and all this kind of stuff on it as well. So it's going to be a fantastic system. And the world tennis number is going to be another really exciting development as well. And again, I suppose it's our organization modernizing and utilizing technology to help create a better experience for our clubs and for our members.
It would really help to sell that system if it was an easy switch over from one system onto that.
Yeah.
Because it's an enormous job to lift all the names and things and transfer them over. Especially maybe in our club, we've got a load of information about people, so it would need to be relatively easy, or it's going to be a mammoth task,
Yeah, I understand. And listen, we're aware of that. We're aware of that too. And look, as I said, there'll be some clubs out there that'll just say, no, we're happy with our existing system, even though we're paying 5 times the amount per annum. But we're just happy with it, and look, that's fine. I mean, it really is a voluntary. I suppose offering similar to the tournament software that's there. We also have the benefit of the tournament software there for helping us to run our tournaments and that. And it's just technology. The technology trying to make the running of clubs easier for volunteers, and that's what we're trying to do. So, is there any other questions before I go?
Yeah, I have one more.
Sure, Dave.
Can our governing body UBTI put up a good argument for the governing body itself getting funds?
Well, I suppose the challenge I suppose we have here, the UBTI is part of Tennis Ireland, and we've how would you say, this year, in terms of from a financial point of view, we've had a significant drop in income. Our income has dropped probably by about 1/3 this year. And but we've also had a significant drop in expenditure. So the challenge for us is really trying to demonstrate that there is that level of need there. So if you take things like, there was no Davis Cup this year, there's no Fed Cup, there's no Irish Open this year. A lot of the tournaments that we would normally run, international events, etc., all haven't happened, and they're all significant costs to us. And so I suppose it's trying to balance it off. No different to the clubs in that respect, in terms of we have lost. I mean, there's been a few clubs that haven't affiliated or haven't completed, I suppose, their process yet. So their affiliation will be suspended, etc. And so we obviously haven't got fees in that respect. But on the flip side, we also haven't incurred some expenditure items as well. So, but we haven't done too badly, I think, in terms of. Funding this year. The funding that we get from Sport Ireland down south, anyway, but it all comes into the one pot, I suppose, in terms of the Tennis Ireland company accounts. Is that I mean, we're up 26% in terms of the funding that we got from Sport Ireland last year. And that's likely to go up again in 2020. So and again in 2021. So we've done pretty well in terms of from the funding point of view. And as I said, that allows us then to start these new funding programs, whether it's the Women Tennis Scheme, which as I said, which I mentioned at the start, to be able to fund things like the Club Spark program, to be able to fund the World Tennis Number, and to fund the other calendar events that we're looking at doing as well. So at the moment we're doing okay. And we've also been raising money in other areas as well, in terms of commercial funding as well, and the ITF, we've been able to squeeze a few quid out of them as well. So from that point of view, things are always tight. We always manage things very, very tightly, as you can see from our accounts for the last 3 years. But I think from in terms of this particular scheme, it's probably not something that we will be applying at this moment in time. But we will be having a look at it for sure.
That's
One thing for sure, David, if there's any money to be got,
we'll try to hoover it up. We will try and hoover
Oliver
it up.
Peterson, our treasurer, will certainly look into it.
He sure will be.
Go and find something possibly.
He sure will be. He sure will be. So
I'd just like to thank you, Richard, for your presentation. It was very useful.
No, John, no problem, and thank you very much. Evelyn, I don't think I have an email address for yourself, Evelyn. If did you register on the register? Oh, you did. Well, maybe it's there. It must be there. So it must be there.
I got a reply back from you.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, well that's grand, and I'll have that there. And what I'll do is, oh, I actually do have it here. Sorry, Evelyn. Apologies for that. You have it here. Yeah. So what I'll do is I will send you out that presentation that I made there now, and then what I'll do is probably tomorrow, because it'll just take a bit of time to load up, I'll send out the link to the video as well to you, and if you need to review, for those of you who were a little late on, Trevor, and there's no problem there, and you can review it at your leisure. Get out a bag of popcorn or something like that, and you can check it out again. A bit like the old Christmas reruns on TV, right?
Thank you.
So listen, guys, thanks for that. And listen, look, make sure that you do engage, keep engaged with Stephen, keep engaged with myself as well, in terms of, look, if there's any way we can assist you or support you in any way. Like one of the things, I suppose, in terms of, I don't know if many of your clubs are hosting tournaments as part of the competitions calendar. I know there was probably, Ulster was probably a little bit slow initially in terms of coming back with, putting your applications in for tournaments. But if you're not running a tournament in your club and you have the ability to do so, look, you should really look at it. It's a nice little revenue generator, and can create a great buzz around the club. But whether that's a weekend tournament or a week long tournament, we do have a lot of options that are there now. And look, our sport is all about, people love to compete. We had, as I said, something like 35,000 people entered into open competitions in 2019, and it'll be a bit less this year, but I think we were all set for a record year until COVID came on. But we will beat that in 2021, I believe, if the restrictions allow us to do so. So as I said, if there are clubs up there, get in contact with Stephen or myself, and we will put you in touch with our competitions department, who will help you and talk you through the process of how to establish and run an open tournament. Okay.
And just one little thing on that, actually, I know, knowing the clubs that are here tonight, your clubs that are very busy and your courts are very busy, but a good option is to run a tournament off-site. So if you have a local school or park courts, it doesn't have to be unbelievably perfect courts and domes, and low-level tournaments and things can be run on public courts, schools, no problem.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thanks for that, Stephen. Guys, listen, thanks a million for your time, and enjoy your evening. And if I don't speak to you, have a great Christmas.
Same to you.
All the best.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks. Bye-bye.
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 Sorry, Rich.